joined now by my friend Riley Gaines, who is down in Atlanta speaking. We'll get into what she is speaking about. But Riley, yesterday I was talking about how Trump needs to do better with young female voters. I don't know if you saw the graphic that I shared where 18 to 29-year-old men are going to vote for Trump by double digits. But 18 to 29-year-old women are right now potentially by a margin of nearly 38% going to vote for Kamala. And I said, okay, who is the best people out there that could speak to this audience? And we got multiple calls saying, I love Riley Gaines. She's doing a really good job. She should be used more. And I know you spoke at the Trump RFK Jr. rally out in Arizona, but I said, we got to get Riley on to talk. So congratulations on the impact you're already having. But what can we do to make young women see how fundamentally dishonest a lot of what Kamala is selling is?
Well, gosh, first of all, it's a joy to be on with you, Clay, so thank you very much. And yeah, this is coming off the heels. You mentioned being fundamentally dishonest. I mean, this is coming off the heels of today. Just today, we're seeing Kamala Harris now pledging millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to building up the wall, the border, yes, to which she called un-American under President Trump. And so, look, what we need to see from the conservative side, from Trump surrogates, what we need to see being pushed out to win over younger women who, of course, tend to be more empathetic. They tend to be more emotionally driven. They tend to be more apologetic. Trump spends a lot of his time talking about foreign policy, which is certainly an advantage over the Biden-Harris, Kamala Harris especially, that administration. But it's not doing a whole lot, I believe, to win over women. He needs to talk about how children are being impacted by progressive policies, whether that's with education, whether that's the gender ideology movement, whether that's putting men in women's locker rooms, what have you. Again, that's an appeal to moms, the suburban woman. You don't mess with her kids. Nothing scarier than a mad mama bear. We need to invoke that. That's what we need to see. I've been super enthusiastic to see Donald Trump going on. He just went on Sean Ryan's show. That interview was awesome. He's been on Theo Vaughn. He just did Aiden Ross, I think largely in part. Barron Trump has been a big proponent of getting him on these streaming networks, these podcasts. He's on TikTok now. All really wonderful things to getting in front of younger voters, more specifically, I think, young women.
So this is interesting because you live in Nashville where I am, and you went to an SEC school at Kentucky. Sometimes I think we take calls and people say, like we had a caller the other day, he said, hey, I'm in Alabama. Most of the people that I see young are voting Trump. That can be true in red states. What happens, though, when you're out traveling? You were just out in Arizona. It's a toss-up state. Certainly there are a lot of people out there that are probably open to the arguments you make. What would you tell, because we got a lot of people out there listening that are moms and they're grandmas, and maybe they're voting for Trump, but they're trying to think about how to talk to their teenage daughters, to their early 20-something daughters. That's people in your wheelhouse. What would you tell those moms and grandmas listening to us right now? How do they have a conversation with their daughter who maybe is almost totally focused, and I know you see this a lot too, on the abortion issue to the exclusion of almost everything else when it comes to how they vote? How would you tell them to approach and have a conversation with their daughters and their granddaughters?
Yeah, no, we saw this again at the DNC. Virtually every single speaker, even speakers where it didn't make sense. You had Andy Bashir up there. He spent almost his entire time talking about abortion and healthcare freedom and reproductive rights, which doesn't make much sense to me. He could have talked about a plethora of other things like education, whatever, besides the point. What I think, I've spent a lot of time trying to really understand the other side, understand what's effective in talking to people my age, again, more specifically young women, what works. And so what I think, again, I've seen in toss-up states, you're right, living in Nashville, going to an SEC school, I think people are also becoming more bold and plainly saying, look, I'm supporting President Trump.
Yeah.
But I think what we need to see, what, again, I've seen be effective, is the simple statement, how can you defend what you cannot define? The Democrats, they claim to be the party of and for women, yet they can't even define what a woman is. So how in the world can you claim to defend it? I think that's an effective way of getting the point across they don't really stand with you. Again, they speak of healthcare freedom. Where was that in 2020? No, the Democratic Party, they were the tyrants who fired healthcare workers. They fired school teachers, active duty military members, if they didn't conform to their autocratic mandates. Reminding people of that. You know, the other side, they speak of compassion, they speak of empathy, they speak of inclusion. Well, is it inclusive to ask young girls to smile and step aside and allow men onto their podiums? And is it compassionate to ask young girls to go into a locker room and undress next to fully grown, fully intact 6'4" men? No, that's not what compassion is. And so almost flipping it back on them, using their language, again, admittedly, what the left does well, I think we can take a page from their playbook on this.
You competed against Leah Thomas, as you said, 6'4" man. You're also married. I think your fabulous husband, Louis, is about 6'4" and a male swimmer from the University of Kentucky. But in Pennsylvania, this is really important because the race may well come down to Pennsylvania. So I want you Pennsylvanians listening really close to this, but certainly it applies everywhere. University of Pennsylvania allowed Leah Thomas to flip and go from the men's swim team to the women's swim team and win an NCAA championship. The governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, endorsed this and said it should be completely acceptable in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, I know there's a lot of Pennsylvanians out there listening to this, but for people who have not experienced your exact story, it directly connects with probably the biggest battleground in this entire country right now, where the University of Pennsylvania is and where Democrats have endorsed what happened to you.
Absolutely. We've seen Governor Shapiro. He's posted on X, social media, many times saying, trans women are women. I'm fully behind this. And what he is saying he is behind, let me be very clear, is sexual harassment, to be totally frank with you. And I correctly label it as sexual harassment because we did not give our consent to be in that locker room. No one asked for our consent to be fully unclothed, exploited, and violated while a man was simultaneously undressing himself in front of us. I mean, think about that. Not to mention, of course, the unfair competition side of it, which anyone with any amount of brain activity, at least any amount of sanity, would be able to see, the unfairness in that, allowing a mediocre, nonetheless, a Division I swimmer, a Division I male swimmer, but mediocre in his rightful category, to switch over to the women's team after 3 years of competing on the men's team to then dominate. Anyone would see the problem with that. Not to mention UPenn, if we're going to be talking about UPenn and the policies that they're pushing there. We saw what they did just about a year ago. On October 7th, all the protests we saw with what's going on in the Middle East, how the university responded there, really, really insane stuff. It's almost as if, speaking, I guess, about the protests we saw, this Frankenstein scenario where these universities have created these monsters, and the monsters were turning around and destroying the very thing that created it.
We're talking to Riley Gaines. You're down in Georgia right now. I want you to tell us what you're doing there. Certainly, I encourage you guys to go follow Riley on social media and listen to her show. She does an OutKick show, among many other things. But Riley, tell us what you're doing in Georgia, but also, have you been, thanks to what I think is your courage and your bravery, have you been seeing, as you're now traveling the country, more and more people, both women and men, being willing to stand up and call out how ridiculous it is to allow men to compete in women's sports? Are you seeing that tide personally in your day-to-day experience as you've been fighting this battle begin to change?
To answer the latter first, absolutely. People, they're seeing, again, the severity, the trajectory of where we're going. Because for so long we thought to ourselves, this is absurd. It won't really happen. It's just a one-off. This is a solution in search of a problem. Now people are seeing firsthand. We saw at the Olympics, right? Male boxers who previously failed sex eligibility requirements, who were able to get into a ring, the highest athletic stage, the Olympics, with the intent of knocking women unconscious, punching them in the face, and they were awarded gold medals. People see that this is absurd. Now to answer why we're in Georgia, myself and about almost 20 other female athletes, we signed on to a lawsuit suing the NCAA and the University of Georgia school systems. That national championship happened at Georgia Tech, and so we were invited today to testify before a Georgia Senate committee. The president of Georgia Tech was also invited to testify. He at one point was complying until he realized that we would be there, and he subsequently denied to be there to testify. And so I had a testimony prepared today to read, highlighting what we went through, again, the unfairness, the locker room, the silencing that we faced. But instead, after realizing he wasn't going to be there, I decided to write him a letter and read him my letter during my time to testify, which I believe is very powerful. It's very compelling. I ask him the simple questions everyone wants to know. Why didn't you protect us, and what are you hiding now? Why won't you show up? Why won't you show your face? Do you have daughters? How in the world can you sit back as a powerful, educated man? I mean, he's been awarded honors by the World Economic Forum. He sits on many governing bodies and boards. He's a smart man. And you really mean to tell me you're okay with what you allowed to happen on your campus? I don't think so, and you'll answer for it. And so that's where we are now. We actually just concluded the hearing. Went very well. We're asking for additional documents, internal conversations between the NCAA and Georgia Tech leading up to this national championship. Not a lawyer, but I certainly believe that we'll be victorious in this suit.
Riley, courage is contagious, and you're providing a lot of courage. And as a result, I think you're changing a lot of hearts and minds every single day. Keep up the fight. If people want to follow you, where can they follow you?
Well, first, you can check me out at OutKick.com. I've got a show. It is called the Gains for Girls podcast. Check that out. And then you can follow me on X. That is Riley_Gains_, and a new best-selling author of the book, Swimming Against the Current.
Congratulations on all the things. Tell your husband I said hi. Keep rolling. Keep fighting the good fight. Thanks for taking the time with us today.
You got it. Thanks, Clay.
That's Riley Gaines. She is fabulous. She is fearless, and she's an athlete. Remember, for everybody out there, she had to swim against a dude, and she was one of the female athletes that said, this isn't right. I'm not going to allow this to keep happening. You guys know I'm a huge sports fan, and I won you some money over the weekend. If you listen to me, as we got ready, she mentioned Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech got the win over Florida State in week 0, game in Ireland. I told you that SMU's quarterback was going to throw for more yards, and I told you that DJ Uiagalelei, whose name I just mispronounced horribly, the quarterback for Florida State, sorry Seminoles fans, was not going to throw for very much yards. If you took both of those picks, you'll won a lot of money. I'm going to give you a pick again on Thursday for the upcoming week of action in college football. Hopefully we'll win there as well. PrizePicks.com, my name Clay. You can play it in Georgia. You can play it in Florida. You can play it in Texas. You can play it in California, over 30 states nationwide. And right now, if you put in a $5 pick, they will give you back $50. That's $50. You 10 times the money. If you pick a $5 pick, they will give you back $50. All you have to do is go to prizepicks.com, use my name Clay. As I just mentioned, we won week 0. Hopefully we will win in week 1. I will give you out a pick on Thursday. I love college football. Everybody is going to be out there playing. Prize Picks makes college football and the NFL more fun. If you like football, and I love it, I'm going to be going to my 8th grader's football game tomorrow as he is in the middle of his season. You will be glad that you did it. Again, $50 instantly when you play $5 if you use my name Clay and download the Prize Picks app today. That's my name, Clay, CLAY, prizepicks.com. Prize Picks, run your game and get $50.